Committee's prioritization of MILCOM projects, space infrastructure, environmental protection, and energy resiliency. I would also like to thank the honorable witnesses here today for taking the time to speak with us this afternoon, for your public service to strengthen the defense of our nation. The military installations in New Mexico's 2nd District play some of the most critical roles in our national defense. But if you saw the condition of the infrastructure at some of these bases, you wouldn't believe it. For example, the service members at White Sands Missile Range and Holloman Air Force Base who are testing groundbreaking technologies are still living in communities with buildings built just after World War II. At a time when our military is struggling with recruitment and retention, we should prioritize improving the quality of life of facilities like housing and child development centers for our service members and their families. We ask them to do a dangerous job, and they deserve better. To make matters worse, the Air Force recently notified the New Mexico Environment Department in 2018 that PFAS is prevalent in surface and groundwater throughout the state, particularly in Albuquerque, right outside of Kirtland Air Force Base. And samples collected at Holloman Air Force Base also showed PFAS levels as high as 1.29 million parts per trillion. Experts state that the lifetime of drinking water exposure to these toxic chemicals is 70 parts per trillion. That's over 18,000 times the lifetime level of exposure, and we should do more to protect the health and well-being of our service members. I think the time to act is now, and I look forward to discussing these important issues with you all. As a former city councilor in the city of Las Cruces, New Mexico, where the National Guard was found liable for contaminants of PCE in a Superfund site that cost the city of Las Cruces $6 million, we as a city with limited resources had to go to court with the Department of Defense in order to clean up those contaminants because they were found by the EPA to be in the drinking water of our residents. That, to me, as a local elected official, was an unacceptable response from the Department of Defense not to accept the liability that it later took a local government to be able to find at fault. Now, my first question is for Mr. Owens. Mr. Owens, could you provide just a quick status update on the department's efforts to completely phase out all firefighting agents containing PFAS by 2024?
I'd be happy to, and thank you for your commitment to this issue. It's vitally important that the full department takes its responsibility to deal with the legacies of the decisions that we've made. In January of this year, the department, the Navy, certified a military spec for a PFAS-free firefighting foam. The military departments we are in the process now of certifying that those formulations do in fact work, and after that, the military departments will be implementing their phase-out plans according to the plans that they've developed.
Thank you, Mr. Owens. And can you provide any insight on specific steps that the department has taken to ensure that aging legacy infrastructure like family housing, child development centers on installations are being properly modernized as mandated in previous NDAAs?
My first job out of college was working as an energy manager at Fort Belvoir, which is just south of here, and I have sort of lived both ends of this now in terms of the infrastructure challenges from an installation level and from a department level. I think that there are the FSRM backlog, the challenges that we have facing a chronic underfunding of the infrastructure maintenance and the deferred maintenance and repair is a very big problem and something that I'm going to be focused on going forward. And I look forward to partnering with the military departments to make sure that we are bringing the resources that are needed to modernize and repair these pieces of infrastructure, particularly on the housing side.
Thank you, Mr. Owens. And that is something that I believe myself and other members of this subcommittee in a bipartisan way are willing to work on to make sure that there is accountability. And that I can tell you it is very hard to attract not just service members, but families to the missions at Holloman Air Force Base when there is a danger that they will be ingesting toxic chemicals from buildings that have asbestos and other chemicals that have yet to be remediated, despite the record investments that we have made in our defense budget year after year. I think this is a critical readiness component, especially where we are handling such critical missions in places like White Sands Missile Range and Holloman Air Force Base that are so critically important to the defense of our nation. Lastly, just one more quick question with these 15 seconds I have. Ms. Jacobson, are there any plans to nominate White Sands for any additional ERCIP, energy resilience and conservation investment projects, as far as you're aware?
May I take that for the record and let you know?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Jacobson. I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Vasquez.